Hi, first thing today, since this is my first video newsletter ever since election day, I would like herein to address and recongratulate President Barack Obama for his re-election. We have 4 years of work to bring back the US further in shape within the democratic orientations and strategy. I think the first concern for the nation as we are heading to tax season is the fiscal cliff debate. Indeed, the Congressional Budget Office reported an increased risk of recession during 2013 if the deficit is reduced suddenly. Good news are if the debt is reduced by half in 2013, over the next 10 years, projected increases in the United States public debt will be lowered by as much as $7.1 trillion, which is the equivalent of 70%, which gonna result in a considerably lower ratio of debt relative to the size of the economy. In his victory speech in Chicago, Obama offered a call for reconciliation after a divisive campaign, but he made clear that he had an agenda in mind, citing a need for change of the tax code. Voters clearly choose the president's view of making sure that all the Americans are asked to do a little bit more to help shrink the federal deficit, whereas combination of tax increases and spending cuts is the first factor that could plunge the economy back into recession. So this is really something to be taken in consideration very closely within the next semester. Sustainable development now with the climate change. Good news as Obama invoked the importance of what is becoming a factor to maintain a steady future for the US and the planet the night he won the election as well. As of the part that is concerning the protection of the monuments, it's true that the budgets are still very narrow regarding that. And I will think that not all the sites can be mentioned in the UNESCO World Heritage sites. Therefore, an effort of budgeting the domestic instances is mandatory by reinforcing the role of actors at a federal, state, county, local levels, and financing them evenly given the needs to meet the requirements of the Sustainable Charts, or what is called the Sustainable Code of Ethics. The United States initiated the idea of cultural conservation with nature conservation through a White House conference in 1965 that called for a World Heritage Trust to preserve the world's superb natural and scenic areas and the historic sites for the present and the future of the entire world citizenry. The International Union for Conservation of Nature developed similar proposal in 1968, and they were presented to the United Nations Conference on Human Environment in Stockholm in 1972. Under the World Heritage Committee, signatory countries are required to produce and submit periodic data as reporting, providing the World Heritage Committee with an overview of each participating nation's implementation of the World Heritage Convention and the snapshot of the current conditions at the World Heritage properties. So the country needs to take back its leadership position when it comes to this field. As I mentioned, historically, the United States were the leader in order to implement this kind of prerequisites of sustainable development. To conclude my newsletter today, I'm gonna talk about sport. A small word of sport. I'm so honored today to tweet Roberto Carlos about the FIFA World Cup 2014. Brazil is going to host the greatest soccer event on earth for the second time in history. The first time was the fourth edition, the one of 1950. Roberto Carlos represents for me an example of persistence and the hard work. Great, probably the greatest left wing back of all times, RC3 played also as a defensive midfielder, a position where he was also as excellent and elegant. With 125 caps with Brazil and 11 goals, he has marked the history of the Seleção forever. I will mention that Roberto Carlos played first with Brazil during the Copa America 1993 in Ecuador, and then the 1995 edition in Uruguay, where Brazil lost to Uruguay, the host nation, on penalties in the final. At the time, Uruguay was led by the great and skillful Enzo Francescoli. Then Roberto Carlos went to the Olympic football tournament of Atlanta 1996 with Brazil, where he clinched the bronze medal. The medal games for soccer were held in Athens, Georgia, and Brazil, after losing to Nigeria on the semi-final 3-4 after extra time golden goal of Marco Cano, beat Portugal into the third place game for the bronze medal 5-0. In 1997, Roberto Carlos was with no question a key player of the roster of Mario Zagallo. He won that year the Copa America in Bolivia. The final was won by Brazil 3-1 versus the host nation. Then the FIFA Confederations Cup in Saudi Arabia, where Brazil squished Australia 6-0 onto the final. He played at last his first FIFA World Cup in France that following year, and he contributed effectively to reach the final for the Auri Verde, like on the last 16 games, with his free kick that is sending the ball to Cesar Sampaio's headers to put Brazil in lead. He had the misfortune during the quarterfinals by missing to kick back a ball that ended into the possession of Laudrup, who scored for Denmark. Brazil won that game though 3-2. In the final, Roberto Carlos didn't have any chance against the France team of Zinedine Zidane, 0-3. After that, the Roberto Carlos also played his fourth Copa America in 1999 in Paraguay, and he won it for the second time. Brazil won the final versus Uruguay that year 3-0. The supreme consecration for RC3 was the FIFA World Cup 2002, where Roberto Carlos was very efficient in all the 7 games of Brazil. His persistence and, like I mentioned, elegance were quietly noticeable in the key games. In the quarterfinal against England, 2-1. In the semi-final against Turkey, 1-0. And then, of course, during the final game, where Brazil has beaten Germany 2-0. So he's after that, when he has won everything with Brazil, his third appearance will be 4 years later in Germany, and we'll see him exit with the Pentacampeões at the quarterfinal stage after a defeat to France 0-1. That was his last game with his country. Among his goals to remember, of course, 2 free kicks, the first one against France during the Tournoi de France in 1997, and then a second one versus the People's Republic of China during the 2002 FIFA World Cup Group C second match day in Seogwipo, South Korea. A wonderful free kick. Roberto's career in clubs is legendary as well. With 3 UEFA Champions League, 2 Intercontinental Cups, 1 UEFA Super Cup, all with Real Madrid. Not to forget domestic honors with Palmeiras, Madrid, and Fenerbahce. He played previously as well with União São João, Inter Milan, Corinthians, and Anshi Makashkara from Russia. Thanks to everything, RC3. You're such an inspiration. Roberto Carlos, obrigado para o maior futebol do mundo. On another hand, thanks for all your encouragements. I try to be interactive as much as I can. Your critics help as well. I'll try to post another newsletter more often. Bye for now, hopefully before Christmas. Thank you so much.